My name is Gary McEwey, high school practice leader for the Leader Me. We're extremely excited to be launching our very first team leadership series entitled QuaranTEENed. Today's episode, the AAA, Adversity, Adaptability, and Aptitude. Team, over to you.
So, hey everyone. Today we're going to be talking about, like Mr. McEwey said, the 3 A's, AAA, Adversity, Adaptability, and Aptitude, and what those three things mean, what those three terms mean, especially when it comes and relates back to going back to school and all the challenges we're dealing with right now with COVID and with going back to school and with just everything that our world's facing at the moment. And so, team, what do you all think about when you hear those three terms, adversity, adaptability, and aptitude? What do those mean to you?
Well, when I think about adversity, I think about a challenge that something that challenges you, maybe whether it be physically, mentally, or emotionally, anything that gives you a challenge that you have to overcome. When I always think about adversity, I always think about the metaphor of climbing a mountain. It's just something that you have to overcome. You have to really work hard, and it's not always going to be a physical thing. Sometimes it could be something you're dealing with emotionally or mentally or even spiritually. So it depends. It varies from person to person, but I think it's anything that challenges you.
Yeah, so for me, like when I think of the word adaptability, I think of just getting used to new things, just like you're adapting to new climate, new situation, whatever. It's just you getting ready and getting used to and accepting new things that are going to happen. And I think that with it comes along a lot of knowledge too, because while you're figuring out new things, you're also learning new things, because you're trying to get through. For example, right now I'm learning how to drive, so I'm adapting to the feeling of having full control of this big machine. So while I'm doing that, I'm also learning things like you only drive with one foot, which unless it's a stick, which I didn't know that. So it's just, you learn new things as you try new things and as you adapt.
Right, definitely. And I think that like your ability to overcome adversity and your ability to be flexible and be adaptable with different situations, I think those are two very important factors when it comes to determining what your aptitude is for anything that you're doing. And so what aptitude is, when I think about that third A, is kind of your natural ability to do something, or like your ability to do something well and successfully. So especially right now, like let's talk about like with coming back to school plans. Obviously a lot of different schools are having to deal with these challenges and deal with adversity, and different schools are having to be flexible and be adaptable in different ways to ultimately determine how successful they're going to be going back. So it's really all these different areas and all these different places' ability to overcome adversity and be adaptable, which is ultimately going to determine how safe students are when they come back to school. And so I guess what I'm going to ask is, how are your all's different schools kind of dealing with these challenges, and how do you feel that they're doing when it comes to overcoming adversity, and how flexible are they being to determine how successful you are going to be, your students?
I think my school is doing a very good job. My school's plans for the first 2 weeks, we're going to split into two groups and then go to schools on one group goes to school on Monday, Wednesday plan, then the other group goes on Tuesday, Thursday plan. And then the days that you're not at school will be on online virtual classes. So I think it's a good trial period, and it's a good way to start adapting to the adversity everybody's facing right now. And I think it's going to work. I think it's a lot of different stuff that other schools can try, but I think this thing that we're doing is going to help us in big ways, and the students safe and the staff.
Yeah, so for my school, the biggest 2 A's of the triple A's that like I'll need to work on personally are adversity and adaptability, because so for us, we're all going back with modifications, but we're not really easing into it. So that's the part of adversity that we work on, because it's going to be a big change and it's probably going to be a bit difficult. And then adapting, we're going to have to really, like, everything is going to be the same because we're not easing into it. So we're going to adapt to the differences, like wearing masks and not having our 30-minute electives and different lunches. Those are the things that we're going to have to adapt to. So adversity and adaptability, they go hand in hand with my school does that.
And I know that for me, like, I don't know if any of you all have ever heard the quote, your attitude determines your aptitude. But when I hear that, I think that attitude is a combination of adversity and adaptability. If when you deal with challenges, you kind of have a negative outlook and a negative perspective, that going back to school, having to deal with wearing masks, having to do these different like schedule changes, if you go into it with the perspective that this isn't going to work, well, then how are you going to be successful and have a high aptitude in school to get good grades and keep working hard? Or if you're not willing to be adaptable and be flexible with how you're going through your school day and how your daily activities are changing, then it's the same thing. How are you going to be successful in the long run if you kind of have that negative outlook on it? And so I think we have to, when dealing with these challenges and when thinking about the 3 A's, I think we have to have a really good attitude about the situation and go into it with a positive outlook. And so what do you all feel are some other qualities, in addition to having a positive attitude, that as leaders, students need to exhibit in order to be successful when we go back to school and in order to deal with adversity and be adaptable?
I think for students, when we say be able to adapt, it's being able to experience new things and being willing to change according to those changes that you need to change. It's kind of work thing, but it's just the willingness of it. You have to be willing to change yourself for the greater good. Sometimes we want to get stuck in our old ways. We want stuff to happen because we want it that way, and that's how it used to be. But things are different, and we're going to have to change along with the times in order to be successful.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Dylan. Like, you have to be open to the change, and you have to be willing to accept the change in order for it to work and in order for things to get better. You definitely have to be open-minded about everything, and I guess tread with caution as well, but definitely keep an open mind about it in order for things to get better, because again, this is still so new to everyone, so you still have to be super open-minded about any solution.
Right. And now more than ever, like, the landscape keeps changing. The situation keeps changing, like from week to week. Even since our last episode and before our next episode, the situation is going to change. The school's plan might change. And so I think having situational awareness in spite of those things and just learning to adapt, like we've been talking about, is really helpful and beneficial. And I think it's all about like thinking win-win. Like the fourth habit of like being able to compromise with the situation and knowing that we're going to have to give up some things in order to gain other things is an important perspective. And I think as leaders and as students, we have to really exhibit those types of qualities like we've been talking about in order to be the most successful, and like Dylan said, for the greater good. And so with that, Mr. McGuey, do you want to come back and summarize everything we've talked about today?
Yes, thank you very much, team. So just listening, and I just keep thinking how this discussion, you keep kicking it up. This it gets even deeper and deeper today around these 3 A's, around adversity, adaptability, and aptitude. A couple of things I heard here, just to really true leadership is about dealing with these 3 A's because they're coming, right? Positive attitude, the ability to respond to adversity and adaptability. I heard about really this piece around being open-minded, willingness, how the landscape is continually changing, this term situational awareness, and how bringing the habit of mutual benefit, habit 4 that deals with courage and consideration, is really some of the foundational principles that'll help all of us deal with these 3 A's moving forward. And who knows, next week we may be having even more changes, right? So, team, once again, thanks for sharing your brilliance. Appreciate it. And we'll see everybody next week. Have a great week. Take care. Thank you, everybody.